Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name's Chris Stelzer, and this channel is going to be about how you can be more successful as a solopreneur. And the topic of today's video is going to be, what problem are you solving? Now, this is one of the most fundamental things in business, period. And, most people think, especially solopreneurs, think that they need to have some sort of genius idea in order to be successful, right? And so they spend a lot of time um, going after those ideas, thinking about things, hoping that when they're in the shower, they're suddenly going to get this idea and it's just going to change their life. But really, as a solopreneur and as a business owner, you should realize that your job is just to solve a problem. That's all businesses do, right? Businesses solve problems. And so, one example could be Uber. Um, depending on your age, you might not remember when Uber didn't exist, and you might remember very well, the pre-Uber world versus the post-Uber world. But let me break it down for you. Um, Before Uber, if you wanted to go somewhere, you either needed to have a friend, family member, or um, someone else take you, or you needed to hire a taxi or a car service, right? And so, in a city like New York City, it's not that big of a deal. You could just walk to the side of the curb and hail a cab and get to where you needed to go fairly reliably, or you could take the subway, right? So they have a lot of transportation options. However, but like let's say you're in just a standard American city outside of a metropolitan area in a city in America. Um, if your car broke down and you needed to take it to the shop and drive back home, you really had to get a friend or family member to do something about it and help you get that ride. Well, then Uber comes along and you can just tap that you need a ride. It knows your location. You put in where you want to go. It's going to tell you there'll be a driver there in 7 minutes. Here's their picture. So it just completely eliminated that problem from society, right? Being stranded, or especially if you're drinking at night and you need a ride home somewhere, eliminated that problem. I don't know what the statistics are. I would imagine that the number of DUIs, the number of injuries and fatalities from people drinking and driving has probably gone down substantially. I would hope, since Uber came about, right? I probably should have looked that up before using that as an example. But as a solopreneur, you need to really think about what problem you're solving. It's really that simple. Okay. And, I remember when I was successful in my business, and my successful business was teaching other farmers and ranchers how to grow more grass for their livestock. And the way that I taught them how to do that was by sectioning off their pasture, right? So, like, let's say a farmer has a football field worth of grass. Well, most farmers, even to this day, or most ranchers, just put all their animals out on that football field. That doesn't give the plants any time to recover and regrow after they've been bitten by the livestock, right? And so what I taught farmers and ranchers to do is to section off, these little narrow strips on that football field in order to let the plants regrow. So I was helping them solve the problem of growing more grass for their livestock so they didn't have to buy so much supplemental feed for them. That was a huge problem because the feed is very expensive. It cuts into their profit margins. It requires more equipment, more labor, etc. So it's a very big and painful problem for them, and I had a lot of success helping them solve that problem. Um, I'll give you another example. Let's the problem of audio recordings or music. When the iPod came out, um, and you may, depending on your age, you had to have CDs in your car or you had to have tapes in your car, right? And technology evolved a little bit with CDs where you could like burn CDs, right, and create different mixes and put a song from this artist on here and a song from a completely different artist on the same CD, and they would just have different tracks or different songs on there that you could skip through. But when the iPod came out, they solved that problem entirely. They just said you can put as many songs as you want on here, essentially, as you want. You can scroll through, you can make your own playlists, you could have rap music, you could have country, you could have classic rock, you could have classical music, everything, something for the entire family. So the iPod really solved that problem as well. And the problem, like I've said, is I see a lot of solopreneurs can't clearly articulate what problem they're solving for their ideal customer. Okay, so let's say you're trying to sell a car, an SUV, right? And instead of listing the cargo capacity on the SUV, like, hey, we've got 39 cubic feet of cargo room, you could say, if you have 3 kids, you can fit all their stuff and your luggage and Christmas presents for when you take that trip every year, right? Like, it's a more clear way to effectively articulate the problem that you're solving. So I really want you to think as a solopreneur, how can you actually solve or define clearly what the problem is that you're solving for your customers' clients? Because really, if you can't define it and you have to educate people on why they need the thing, chances are you've got some work to do in refining your communication or actually providing a product or service that solves the problem. So that's the mistake I see a lot of solopreneurs make, is they don't clearly have what problem it is that they solve defined. So I'd encourage you, after watching this video, to write in one single sentence what the problem is that you solve with your product or service. Okay, write that down. And when you start looking through your business through that lens, then everything's going to get much easier for you, because you're going to have a much easier time attracting customers, because you're only going to attract customers that have this specific problem, right? So for example, if you solve the problem of putting new tires on cars, right, and you promise that you can do it in 45 minutes, you're not going to be attracting people who want a new custom set of wheels and want to lift their truck or their car. You know what I mean? You're just here to cater to people that want to get their tires changed out within 45 minutes, and that's the type of customer that you're attracting. You don't need to attract all these other people who aren't interested in that. So take some time, go ahead and define your problem, and write it down. If you want, you can share it in the comments if you have any struggles on defining it. But the more clear you can get on the problem that you solve, the easier that your business, your life is going to be, and the easier time you're going to have attracting customers. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I feel like maybe I didn't give the greatest examples, but hopefully you gained a little bit of clarity on ultimately what the purpose of your business is and how to clearly define that problem that you're solving so you can be more successful. All right, take care.